So I can just start, let's start at the top. You can have comments in there, so if you work with any developers, they don't shout at you. You can just start off with something like, hello, TikTok, hello to you too, great. So, what's your name there, sir?
Mehdi.
Sorry?
M-E-H-D-I.
M-E-H-D-I. So let's go say hi to M-E-H-D-I, say hi to Mehdi. Right, hi Mehdi, nice shoes. Yeah, lovely, nice pair of Nikes there. So you can see we've used the wildcard, we've put that into the response. You can have, here you can have a selection, so anything within that list. So, yo, hey, there we go, returns the same thing. Now you can show me some buttons. So you can see here, I've got wildcards either side of the buttons, and then it gives me these selection of buttons. And all these do is then puts in the text as if you're answering that question. So the buttons are a really easy way to shortcut bothering about text. It's like a fake chatbot. It's a choose your own adventure bot, basically. So if you don't, easiest level, just work with buttons. Map out the flow, do everything in buttons, and then just have a wildcard that takes you back to some like high-level menu buttons. That's the easiest way. And then we can talk about topics. So over here, if I want to do something that has completely different functionality, then I can go, let's go open pod bay doors. So, oh, hello Matt, okay, hey mate, can you help? I can't do that, Matt, okay, well, can we open the doors? No, you can't do that either. So all of this is within this kind of, standard help vocab here. So to anything, he responds, I can't do that. So what we'll do is we'll go back, and you'll see that matches to here, where we can shift back to the topic. So all of this is like really simple syntax, isn't really clear. So if I go back and if I go hello again, it goes back to that original topic. And then also we can embed videos. It won't show here, but when we do this, so it is trying to load something from Vimeo, so you can embed this into whatever platform as and when. Cool. Okay. So we have the start of a conversation. So the next thing is getting our data into that conversation. So. And by the way, if anyone's got any questions, just stick your hand up, otherwise I'm just going to rattle through this. But I find half of this isn't actually knowing exactly how to do it in these sessions, it's just knowing it is possible and going to look it up. And again, I'll keep saying this, the Dexter documents are amazing for this. And they talk about all of these integrations. So if you haven't used Airtable and you're using Google Sheets, and if you're pulling data from your Google Sheets and you keep having issues with how it's structured and it's not clean, it's not validated, there's free text everywhere, then Airtable is a really good, it's a really good tool for like structured data tables. So if you're doing anything on Google Sheets that has lookups and links, and you want to ingest into a database or some sort of data pipeline, I'd recommend taking a look at Airtable because it gives you like primary keys, it does all kind of calculations, you can have function fields over here, you can have lookups from different lists that you can lock off. You can have like different views as well, so I know some people use it as a CRM, and they have like a panel, one of these panels that has all their contact info and their action log. Anyway, that's not important. What we're doing here is we're using it as a staging platform for our data. So like I said, I'm just assuming all the stuff downstream, like you're pulling from DCM or GA or Google Sheets, you pull all that data together, and then you're just dumping it here with a few key values. So here we've got our top line stats, we've got our delivery stats, we've got our revenue stats, and we've got our kind of campaign full name here, we've got our client name, and we've got our brand name here as well. So what we need to do is we can do HTTP requests in Dexter. It brings in as a JSON object. You can have multiple JSON objects, so you can make loads of calls, pull all the data together. Okay, here are a couple of things that took me fucking ages to figure out. It needs URI encoding, so I was passing just the kind of the basic strings with spaces in. You need to encode those out to either have pluses or the percentage 20 in there. And where you saw airtable, it had some capitals in. You need to lowercase that shit because all of the stuff in Dexter is handled in lowercase. All of the input, the user input, is treated as lowercase. So those two things was just save you an hour at least. I did have a tinker with the Google Sheets, but the airtable filter in the request was really, really helpful, so I used that first. Okay, so I'll show you the docs as well. The Airtable API, when you look at the documentation, it actually builds the documentation from your data set. So you get examples that are totally relevant to yours. So this is really smart, and I don't know why more people don't do it. But this is amazing because it just tells you exactly how to reference everything. And then I'll just show you the call in Dexter. So this is what it looks like. So there's a lot going on there, so I'll just break this down in a second. But this is a request to go and get the data from Airtable. So let's just break this down. So we can have our variables. At the top line, you can have them as global variables for your bot. Then we have, this is our get. It's telling us that an HTTP request is coming. And this gives us a variable name for the data object, which again was something that I didn't realize I could do until like 2 a.m. this morning. So then we have our request. It's just an API call to summary table. And then, you know, I was talking about the in-query filter. I can filter down, so it only gives me a couple of the fields I want. So here I just want campaign, and I just want the delivery stats. And then I've got that filtered by formula, so it's across the lines, but you can see this is lower. So I'm lowercasing the campaign name to match. Then I do that in code. So this star, remember, is the wildcard. I'm basically telling it I want this for a particular campaign. We're encoding that into a URL-friendly format, and then we can throw this is a global variable that we've done up here. So that's how we're putting it all together. This is error handling. Dexter doesn't do a lot of it, so it's good to just have something if it's throwing an error. Then what we do is we pull the records from our data set, and then we can, just using dot notation, you can pull out the information you need. And if you put this into the browser, it should return the JSON object in a single line format, so you can check like how far down fields, campaign, or data, you can check the data structure. And then we use this end is just giving us line breaks. So that's the connection. That's live. So let's actually see what that looks like. Oh no, integration with Slack. Yeah, okay, so we integrate it with Slack. I'm that flippant because, again, back to the docs, it's really easy. But here's how I wasted another 30 minutes. And you need to click the deploy button before it gives you these Dexter settings. So I was searching Google, I was searching everywhere for where to find these settings, and it doesn't actually tell you. Click the deploy button first and tell you where to find them. So just do that first. So I've just cleared all this out of the way. So I've switched back to that default topic you can see I've got here. So let's say hi. Hi, what can I do for you? So I've got a couple of buttons. I don't want people to kind of fanny around with delivery checks or that, or typing that in. So let's go delivery check. Which campaign? Great. Okay, let's if we just go back to our thing, I've got a couple of options here. So I've got Bob movies, that should tell me 107%. Oh, no. Cool. Okay. So then, just quick on response. Now, obviously, we've got a list of 10 there, so I could have just checked the Airtable. That's probably what you're thinking. But not everyone will have access to that. And like I said, that's going to be a list of 120 odd campaigns. It's going to be moving all the time. And all of our conversations happen in Slack. So again, we can go back, we can do a revenue check. What campaigns you want to do a revenue check for? I think let's go Danny Watches. Cool, great, 50k. Not worried about that, carry on. Let's give me a GIF. Cheers. And I'm all done. Cool. Okay, so that's great, but that's all text match. I think it will fall over if I do a delivery check and if I go Bob. Ooh, no, it doesn't work. Okay, so it's kind of fallen over there. It doesn't quite know how to handle it. So, where are we? Okay, we've integrated with Slack. Now, introducing the undercover robot. So I know the Blade Runner thing was a fine jar, but I'm using it in the correct context, I think.
Still findable.
Yeah, still findable. Okay. Okay, well, consider me fine. So, we're going to integrate dialogflow. So, dialogflow is a machine learning tool. You can throw a load of phrases at it, and it can figure out kind of what you mean. So, it's a bit of natural language processing, and you don't have to know anything about how it works, which is great. So, two things you need to know about dialogflow are intent and entity. So, they might mean different things, different contexts, but in this context, the intent is the report, I want the delivery or the revenue report, and the entity is the campaign you want it for. So that's great. We can do a couple of simple things. If you think back to our Airtable, you would have seen that I've got an entity CSV here. And now it's easy to put this together because we can put it together from the client, brand, the campaign full name, whatever any other metadata is that people might recognize it by. You know, you might call it the big one. So you can stick all those synonyms in and you can upload that to Dialogflow and it'll go, when you say this, you actually mean this campaign. And so that's how you can link all the IDs together. And again, if you're using like DCM, you can have campaign IDs or whatever, you can actually have the specific IDs pulling in. Format them to work in the URI. Again, another hour wasted was trying to figure out how to get the data from this API request, format it, and then put it into the next one. When I suddenly realised actually if I format it even before I pull it, then I don't have to do anything. And the brilliant thing about the Slack logs is that you've got a history of people asking for these kind of requests. So you've got a load of the language that people use. Great. I've got my entities, I've got my intents. Let's take them to Dialogflow. And a lot of this is a little bit like asking the Terminator to make cups of tea for you. There's all of this stuff. I don't really know how any of that works or what it does, and you don't need to. So what I've got here is I've created an intent. So I've created a delivery intent, and you can see I've thrown in a load of phrases, and within each one of those, I've identified the campaign. So here's what the sentence looks like, and here's what is normally here's where the campaign bit is. And what we can do is we can try this. So I can go delivery for Danny. So, okay, intent, it's got the delivery, and if I scroll down there, you can see it's going to return this value for the campaign. Great, this is exactly what I want. With the entities, so I've uploaded that list of synonyms, I've pre-encoded it here, because this is what I want to return, and this is all the synonyms. and you can switch to raw mode. You can just cut and paste if you want. Obviously, we have campaigns changing weekly. It should be fairly straightforward to set up a cron job on a Google App Engine to just go get the CSV, upload it to this every day or once a week, or it can be on your to-do list to do once a week. Depends on the rhythm of how you work and how up to date this campaign list needs to be. Great. Okay, so we've got all of that. Now we've done the intents, we've trained it, campaigns, and tests. Cool. Now, so what I've done here is this is a different topic. So we've got that introduction again. Let me check the campaign. Then this is interesting. You can do a conditional catch-all. So it only catches everything if it only puts data into here if previous sentence was let me check the campaign for you. So again, that can be whatever, but it can be ready to take what you're putting in and throw it into the API calls. So again, we've named our data set here. We're getting our dialog data. I'm encoding that data and sending that as just a query string. So you just send a sentence there. And I get back the intent name, and I get back the campaign parameter. And then what I've done is I've just set a couple of internal variables here. So the target for the campaign and the report type. One of the things you've got to be careful of is not trying to use text titles that you might actually use in the triggers. So you've got to kind of shuffle it around, maybe stick some like variable identifiers at the front, do whatever you need to do, but that's something I kind of tripped over. And here's what I did, separating it, so then we can do a redirect at the end of all of this response to go, I've done this, but you can do then sequential responses. So I've got this data from dialogflow, I've sent the sentence, it's told me the intent and the entity, or the report and the campaign. Now I'm going to go and get the data with those two variables. Cool. Okay, and then we've got, oh yeah, you can put the JavaScript, you can put mini JavaScript snippets in there as well. So this is just a kind of standard JavaScript function that's just encoding those URIs. Cool, okay, now, oh god, the money shot, please work. So, let's activate Skynet. Okay, that's right. Okay, here we go. So, so someone might just go, dial for Bob. Oh, I've got an intro. So this is one of the things, like I'm still learning how to get that kind of always listening. So actually what I've got at the moment, I've got to kind of queue up the conversation. So now it's saying, let me check a campaign for you. We know with our conditional listener that it's waiting for a campaign. So let's go dial check for, or let's go dial for Bob. Hey! So, and there we go, and we can go get rev for, maybe not, queue it up. Because I've only trained it on like a few, you can keep training those intents. So we'll go rev for Harold. Great, cool, brilliant. Okay, so as a campaign manager, without bugging it with the analytics team, I can just pass off those requests. And one last thing, you may have seen it here at the side, but if you're using like a dashboarding tool, because it's like, that's great, what if there is a problem with my campaign, what do I do next? So like Data Studio, I know you can put the campaign parameters in the URL. So you can have go to like campaign deep dive dashboard, and you can have a filter that you can populate with an ID here. And then you can, with a link shortcode, you can pull that data from Airtable, put it into a link, and have that at the bottom of the reply. So you can just have your campaign manager going, oh, how's the Bob campaign going? And they go, oh, that's not great, but I've got the link to go and find out why. So that's that. We've got 2 minutes left. Oh, hat tip for all of this. If you don't already know about it, like bookmark Knight Centre for Journalism. So the reason I came across the chatbot was one of their courses. They do free courses like every quarter or so. They last about 4 or 6 weeks. They do data viz, Python, R for data journalism. They introed me to chatbots. So and you get some good names like I think Alberto Cairo, the data viz dude, just did their data visualization one. So they're a really good source for online learning. Final thing, my team might be hiring soon. Like I said, we've got a lot of kind of very talented reporting analysts, but we're building out our data pipeline. So all of that stuff I said, don't worry about getting the data, joining all together, building a data warehouse. At the end of this year, start of next, we might need someone to come and help us do that. So if you are a data engineer or you know any good data engineers, please put them in touch. So that's me. 1 minute to go. Any questions? Go for it.
It's super cool, super exciting, but at the same time, do you actually reckon you can see use for it? And I would laugh, I would probably try and build the same thing. I work for an agency as well. My boss can't stop talking about chatbots. So I'm gonna win bonus points as well, and I do find it cool, but I can't stop feeling like the kind of energy that goes into it compared to what you get out of it. I just feel like I haven't seen the right use case for it, considering how much stuff is going in.
So we've done the maths on this. So at the moment, we're a very specific scenario because we have some manual reporting. Say we're running like 100 campaigns a week. Say each one of those reports takes anywhere between like around 20 minutes on average to pull and to kind of commentary and come back to you. Now say we can reduce that workload by like 30% or so by just taking away all of those top level requests by just putting a really simple piece of data in front of people. Then all of that starts to add up. You're saving, it's not changing revenue incoming necessarily, but certainly from my perspective, what I'm trying to do is stop my team doing the menial tasks so we can do the real kind of multipliers.
But then also, if it's literally just checking delivery over the last day or a week, you can have one dashboard with 100 campaigns, or like one dashboard with a campaign page, and it's going to take you less to like. Yep. Sorry, I don't want to shoot you down. Just because I really want to do it, and I was hoping that someone's going to give me a reason as to why I should do this.
It's like with any. So just because you've been here doesn't mean you should go back on Monday and do this. The whole reason why I've done it is because there is a really relevant time saving in my particular scenario.
Thank you.
So with any tool, it's functional doesn't mean usable doesn't mean helpful. So it's got to be all three of those to be a valuable product or project from a business point of view.
Thank you.
So your mileage may vary.
Thank you very much for sharing that. That was awesome. It seems that I've got a slight feeling you were butting up against some limitations in Dexter. Is that fair, or is it that you've got more to learn about Dexter? Is it? I guess I don't know the space, but I guess there are other tools for a similar thing.
Yeah. So yes, there are other tools. This just happens to be the first one, and I've got something useful out of it. Yes, there are limitations in Dexter, which is why knowing that it's built on RiveScript, because the RiveScript documentation is in a lot more depth than Dexter. So like those conditional listeners, for example, I'd seen it in a script, I had no idea. Dexter doesn't tell you what that does. So yes, there are limitations. Yes, I'm still learning, but it kind of does enough at this stage. And actually, there are now some open source BI tools like Metabase that actually has a Slack bot built in, and so you can line up queries, and then obviously you can do your SQL stuff in there. So obviously, it just totally depends on what tools plug in, your ability.
Cool, thanks.
Cool. How many hours have you spent?
So I started at about, minus the pre-thinking, I started at about 8 PM last night. And then there's about, 6 hours last night and a couple of hours this morning. Yeah, so that's. But that's it.
It's only 10 minutes.
Once you know, like once you stop fucking around with the idiot moves or just the face palming, of course you need to encode the URL. Then you kind of move through.